This is Secret Stories, and my name is Mary Cachapaya. Many people cannot be on camera because their employer, their family, their friends, or their church or synagogue would roll their eyes, ridicule, misunderstand, or even fire them. Now we even have the added stress of being heckled on social media. Well, Secret Stories shields you and allows you to tell your own story with anonymity. Thank you for valuing what we do, and thank you for the support that makes Breaking the Silence possible. In this secret story, Benno shares his Nana's Sunday story and Grandpa's fishing trip story. When I was 9 or 10 years old in 1984, my Nana Edna, Dad's mom, told my brother Christian and me a fantastic story one Sunday afternoon after lunch at tea. One summer, Nana said that they saw a large flying saucer land in the fields near her house. I loved all things sci-fi, and so too did my brother, so we couldn't wait to hear more. Sitting around her circular wooden dining table with the lime green satin and crocheted cream tablecloth, Nana would put out a big fancy china plate of Arnott's biscuits in the middle of the table and serve us a very milky cup of tea that was half milk. Nana would then share some stories about the olden days with us grandkids. On this particular day, Nana recounted that one evening, along with her kids, she saw a silver saucer come down from the sky. It looked like a bright star. We were all watching it. Then it was moving like a meteorite or something, she said. It all happened very quickly, you know. She recalled. It became closer, and we saw it was big object, a flying saucer, not a light. It landed in the paddocks, I'd say near the end of the airfield over there. When it approached the ground, 3 legs came out of it when it touched on Earth. A few seconds later, a hatch opened and a golden light began to shine out from the inside of the shiny silver saucer. She exclaimed, "How big was it, Nana?" I asked. "Oh, I'd say it was at least as big as 2 or 3 houses, Ben. It was big," she exclaimed. I grabbed another biscuit to dunk in my milky sweet cup of tea. Nana always gave me 2 or 3 sugars if I asked for them, and money for an ice cream at the deli before we went home. And this appeared to go up with the CPI each year, progressing from 20 to 50 cents, and then a golden $1 coin when they were first minted. 2 very tall blonde Nordic men with blonde flowing hair came out of it. They had to be 7 or 8 feet tall. They were wearing metallic suits. They walked down the ramp that came out from inside of the craft and just stood halfway down the ramp. They were just looking around, you know. They were all lit up from the light coming from the doorway in this beautiful golden light. They just stood there watching us standing halfway down the ramp. Even from a distance, I could see that they had the most beautiful blue eyes. Oh, they just sparkled so, Nana recalled. They stood there for a very long time before they walked down the ramp onto the ground in the paddock. They walked around a little bit, but they were making sure that they were staying close to their flying saucer, she said. How far away was it? I asked. Oh, not so very far away, I guess. A couple of 100 feet away from the house, I guess she said as she pointed. The airport is to the left of us here, and they were facing us from over there. She pointed again in the direction she thought was right. Now, at that time, there were no other houses anywhere near them, not in front or to the side of them. The house was surrounded by flat, cleared paddocks with the odd gum tree and the occasional rusted barbed-wired fence. I can only speculate and take Nana's word for it that it was close enough for them to see certain details. Let's go on to Grandpa's fishing trip. Recently expanded after World War II, Parafield Airport was originally built around 1927. Interesting fact is, Parafield was Adelaide's number 39, only civil airport until Adelaide Airport was opened in February 1955. I have seen vintage black and white film footage of a very young Queen Elizabeth landing there in a big silver plane. I believe it was about 1954. Anyway, Nana said that there was only about 4 or 5 houses built and spread right out in the Parafield Gardens area at that time, and my dad confirmed this. Only paddocks and sheep with some privately owned horses in the late 1950s, early 1960s. My dad, when he got older, used to ride one of their neighbors' horses bareback. Dad would often hunt and collect snakes with his self-taught homemade bow and arrows that he made. He said he'd get 4 to 6 bob, which is old Australian pound currency, I think, for a full snakeskin from a bloke who dealt in leather in the local area. They were mainly brown snakes, with the odd red-bellied black snake and so on. This bloke would treat and tan the leather and send it to Sydney, where they'd be made into boots and such. Dad said the bloke told him it was a good deal because the Yanks would pay top dollar for snakeskin boots. Dad would give the money straight to my Nana to help his family and make sure that they had food on the table. The money from my grandpa Ron working away at the Maralinga atomic site as a perimeter security patrol guard and Aboriginal liaison officer only came monthly, and that was even if he sent it on time, and so they'd often run short of money for things. When Grandpa Ron, who was personally identified as an Aboriginal Australian from the Torres Strait Islands, did come home, he'd bring home a month's worth of washing for my Nana covered in radioactive dust. The whole family was exposed to this radioactive dust, as safety was not a strict priority for the British military atomic initiative here in Australia. Most workers out there ended up getting weird and aggressive cancers and dying prematurely. By the time my grandpa was in his 80s, officially 11,000 people who had worked and lived out at Maralinga had died out of 12,500 people that worked and lived within the proximity to the atomic range. For Grandpa Ron, with a metal plate in his skull from a motorbike accident, possibly from his brief stint in the Australian Army, just like some of the X-Men, the radiation somehow appeared to have made him stronger. Although he was diagnosed with diabetes in his 80s, he in fact never did anything the doctor said and ended up living to the ripe old age of 90-something. I do recall Grandpa saying to me personally that he would see UFOs all the time out there during the testing that went on. UFOs would often appear from out of nowhere, not just during the actual test and not just around the test site, although this was when they appeared more active and it was when more people saw them. He told me how he and his mate worked out that they were not just flying in from somewhere they let off the bombs, but they appeared to be up there the whole time watching us. They were just invisible to us most of the time. It was like the movie, isn't it? You know, that one with the big German fella who fights the alien. Grandpa exclaimed. I believe he was referring to the movie Predator, with the Austrian-American actor Arnold Schwarzenegger, where the alien can cloak using technology of some sort, making himself invisible. Grandpa did tell me about this one story, too, where he and his mate had taken some leave when they saw a huge, dull, gray metallic disc quickly and quietly just come down from the sky. The disc silently hovered about 50 feet from them over the ocean, where they were fishing from a cliff out on the Null Harbor Plain somewhere. He described that they first thought that they were seeing a mirage, as it looked like it was distorted and shimmering off in the distance. But then he said that they both began to feel some real heat as it appeared to be getting larger and coming closer. It was not a mirage, it was a real physical object. The bottom of the object was glowing red hot at first, and it came to a stop right in front of them, hovering in the air just over the bay where they were fishing. As they watched the craft hovering stationary, as it cooled, they saw it clearly as dark, matte, solid metal object with some kind of bumpy texture all over it. He said that the only sound they heard was a low-pitched humming sound, but you could hardly even hear that. Grandpa had become accustomed to regularly experiencing unexplained phenomena and sightings, and so he and his mate from work just kept on fishing regardless. Grandpa said his faithful dog Susie barked at the craft for a few minutes, but she too eventually stopped and ignored it to concentrate on her dedicated job of being Grandpa's shadow, enjoying his undivided attention, as his other animal mate, Wally the Wombat, was left back in Maralinga. To give this its proper context, one must first understand that Indigenous people here just accept these things as another aspect of everyday life and nature itself. It's not an extra thing that needs to be substantiated by physical evidence, proven by some self-appointed expert, or something which needs validation by the government. It's just there. It is as real as the air we breathe, the water we drink, and the earth we walk on. They have been with us since our beginning. It is told by many elders that we all originated or came from the stars. In the dreaming, "What were you using for bait, Grandpa?" I asked. "We'd use some ganged hooks. No bait, Ben," Grandpa replied. "What do you mean, no bait?" I asked. We'd twist a bit of aluminum foil around the hook, and we'd catch Australian salmon every cast. You know, like a lure, Grandpa explained. "Oh, cool. I wish I was there with you, Grandpa," I exclaimed. "You'll see one day, Ben," Grandpa promised, not knowing that I already had. "No, Grandpa, I mean I wished I was fishing with you," I exclaimed. "The UFO sounds so cool as well," I said to Grandpa. "How long was it there with you guys?" I asked Grandpa. "A half an hour, I reckon, maybe 40 minutes. Then it took off south, and he pointed up in the sky and disappeared, so fast that if you blinked, you'd have missed it, mate," Grandpa exclaimed. "Wow," I exclaimed. This was a very cool story for me to hear, because I was addicted to fishing, and by this age I was also into everything sci-fi, and of course the UFO mystery. Lying on our backs on the family trampoline, I loved watching the stars with my dad and brother Christian, speculating about the nature of our universe and hoping to see a UFO. And now back to Nana's Sunday story. Nana continued to tell me that my dad, his older brother Steve, and baby sister Rosie were all outside on the porch with her when they saw the UFO come down from the night sky. They all watched the men from the space come out of their ship. They didn't have air conditioning back then, and they were all cooling in the cool summer breeze outside the house. I guess that's what Aussies did back then. Sometimes a lot of Aussies even slept in the front or backyards when it was stifling hot. My dad was 5 to 6 years old, holding my Nana's hand on the front porch, and his little sister Rosie was so scared that she went from holding Nana's hand to disappearing under Nana's light cotton summer dress. Nana was calling to my dad's older brother Steve, who legged it to the edge of the yard to get a better look, to come back and not go any further. In my whole life, Ben, I tell you, I have never seen such beautiful men before. Oh, they were just so gorgeous. I recall her recounting more fondly than when she'd tell us of the numerous Indian taxi drivers that would, according to her, hit on her during her weekly shopping trips to and from Salisbury, or back and forth from scheduled doctor's appointments. How long did you see them for, Nana? I asked. We watched them for ages. It seemed like hours. As amazing as it was getting very late, and I had to put your Auntie Rosie to bed. So I said, "Come on, boys, we're going to bed." "But, Mom, they're still here," Steve pleaded. But to no avail. "Come on, Steve, do what Mum says," pleaded my younger father. "Shut up, Mark," Stephen exclaimed. "That's quite enough, Stephen. Come here this instant," scolded Nana. Amazingly to me, too, after that, they all went inside and just went straight to sleep. "Is that the end of the story, Nana?" I asked in anticipation. "Well, yes, I guess, except I guess I remembered that we all slept in late that next day, and all of us did not get up until after lunchtime. That was odd. Yes, very odd now. I come to think of it," Nana conveyed to me with a worried, puzzled look on her face. And that was that. Final tribute to Nana and Grandpa. I reckon my Nana looked a bit like Snow White. She had jet black hair down to her knees. You never saw it down, as she'd wrap it up into a UFO bun every morning before anyone saw her. Edna had perfect porcelain white skin and strikingly blue eyes, just like the Nordics that she had described to us in her recount. Another interesting fact, Nana was an identical twin and had Germanic genetic lineage heritage, which in the data collected apparently appears to be a contributing commonality in many reported abduction and missing person cases in the US and around the globe. Thank you for your stories, and rest in peace, Nana and Grandpa. With Secret Stories, remember, sharing is caring. Please share your story, everyone. Thank you, Mary and Steve. Kind regards, Benno from Oz. Thank you, Benno, for sharing your grandparents' stories. And thank you for sharing your experience with us as well. It takes guts to share your experience, and when you feel ready, I will share your story for you. This is Mary Cachapalia. May love and light follow you.